Okay, continuing with our professionalism series and building your personal brand. This is part 3 of our business meals series, and we're specifically dealing with now business dinner conversations. Okay, so these are tips that will help you, once again, demonstrate etiquette and build your personal brand. So to start with, when you're going to have a business dinner and you know the purpose behind the dinner, prepare. If it's a working dinner where you're going to be working through a project, prepare for that. Have the materials necessary with you, bring your briefcase, right? That type of thing, or whatever information you are going to need. Study up ahead of time so that you can speak intelligently about it. Know who's going to be at the meeting, know who needs to be at the meeting, all of those things. So just like for a normal meal, you're going to prepare adequately. Now, if it's the type of business meal where it's more of a networking function, for example, you're going to prepare differently in that scenario, right? You'll prepare more along the lines of knowing about the other party, about their business, that type of thing. So in either way, preparation is key. All right. As for conversations, an important thing to remember in any conversation, if you're trying to endear yourself to another person, the best thing you can do is to listen. You can obviously introduce topics, prompt them with questions about themselves, but the key thing is to not make it self-focused. Avoid I and me unless you're responding to a question. Oftentimes the questions you'll ask of other people meant to engage them in conversation will lead to reciprocal questions, similar questions about you. And you can use, honestly, the technique of just telling enough about yourself that it begs another question, right? Type scenario, or leads you into the ability to ask a question about them. Never answer a question just dead-ended and wait for the other person to ask another question. Always lead towards answering the question, but right into, which that reminds me, I wanted to ask of you, or I also thought about this, right? You're adding a different point for them to continue the conversation, right? So there are lots of tips we provide throughout our professionalism and communications series that will help you in that regard. So I encourage you highly to review those videos as well. All right, so make certain during the conversation at the table that you involve other parties. If you see a party that is not engaged in the conversation, seek to include them. Okay, it'll be appreciated by them, but others pick it up as well as demonstrating etiquette and professionalism. All right, so include others. No negativity in any regard. There's the old saying that you have to do 10 things positive to make up for one negative thing, right? Talking negatively about others is one of those things. It gives others the perception that you speak regularly negatively about others on a regular basis, and that given the opportunity, you would speak negatively about them if necessary. So make certain to be conscious to not make negative statements during the meal. Once again, it creates the wrong impression that you don't want to put out there. Okay. Now, during the meal, you will focus on work topics. Now, sometimes during working meals, you'll spend all your time on work topics. During more social business building, business development things, you'll spend a lot more time on social aspects throughout the entire meal, and only bring up topics about business after you've at least gone through all the pleasantries, asking, getting to know the people and things like that. But oftentimes you'll wait till very late in the dinner towards the end before you bring up anything in the nature of business. But that's more when the meal is more focused on networking functions and business development in that regard. So the important thing to know, once again, is to know what type of meeting you're in, and so you'll know the extent and at what time to focus on the work topics. But there are certainly topics that are taboo, that you never talk about during these scenarios, and generally it includes religion, politics, sex, and oftentimes humor. Humor can be light or just brief comments, that type of thing, but no extensive humor that could be seen as base or vulgar or in some way could offend someone. And then lastly, careful with alcohol. Okay, alcohol can cause you, one, to make less sense when you're talking. It can cause you to talk about things or go down tracks that you otherwise wouldn't, but it will also cause you to avoid or not get to talk about the things that are most important. So once again, careful with the quantity of consumption of alcohol, because the impairment that it causes can wreak havoc for business conversations.